Hey, welcome back. Yeah, it's been a while since I did one of these movie reviews. It's been a few weeks. I wanted to do one for Split, but honestly, I didn't have the right words, and I was just probably going to mumble through it and not really explain the movie too well, so I scrapped it. And I really didn't know what to say about Samurai Jack's series finale, so I scrapped that one too. But I do have the words to talk about this movie, Logan. Just saw it yesterday. I know it's been out in the States for a while, but in Japan we don't get it here until a couple months afterwards usually. So I'm going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like in the movie, and this will be a spoiler review, but I will keep the spoilers to a minimum. I'm not going to ruin the movie. So with that being said, here we go. First, I'm going to talk about what I liked. First of all, I liked Logan in this movie. I liked Logan. He was good. And what I liked is that this movie sets it up how pathetic Logan has become. Not just him, but you saw in the trailers, Professor Xavier. They show how pathetic he has become. And both of them are just so sad at the beginning of this movie. And so when the story progresses, it's almost like a redemption story in a sense, as well as a story of tough, gruff man trying to protect a child. Even though, as you see in the trailers, this child can and does know how to protect herself. And man, they did a good job with X-23. And I went into the movie kind of knowing who X-23 was because of the comic books and the X-Men Evolution cartoon from the early 2000s. And so I knew of the character, and I was kind of curious how they're going to portray the character. And they did a pretty good job. The actress, I don't know her name. She did a good job with this character. You kind of got the sense that this child really knows nothing about the world, the way she acts, the way she interacts with people, her inability to really communicate what she's thinking and how she feels for a good part of this movie. It's done very well, just like how we saw Logan and Professor X grow as characters. We also saw X-23 grow as well, and that was done pretty well. I definitely had to give it to the actress who was portraying X-23 in this movie. She did a very good job, and I liked the story behind it. There was some stuff that I'll get into later, but as a whole, I liked the story that they told in this movie, with bringing them low and then building them back up. And not to mention the fact that you saw a very vulnerable side of Logan in this movie that we really didn't see in any of the other X-Men movies. They try to make him kind of vulnerable and softer character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, but that movie, there are so many things wrong with that movie. Not the CGI and stuff. I'm talking about story. I didn't like the story or the fact that Gambit had a glorified cameo in that movie. But I could talk about that movie another day. But they did a good job with this. They even showed the way that the mutants are portrayed in this world. It's set in the future, and that's kind of a negative in this, only because, in my opinion, they don't set it far enough into the future. In my opinion, they should have added like 10 years, and it would have been a little more acceptable for me, because when they showed what the year was, and then you think about Days of Future Past and how that timeline would fit into this, it's kind of jarring. But at the same time, the X-Men universe really is bad with the timelines, so what do we really expect? All in all, though, as far as negatives go, I think that there were so many things that I think would have been better if they had shown us instead of told us. They talk about an incident that happened. They tell us how Xavier got as low as he got, but I kind of wanted to see it. And it's one thing for him to say it, but it's another thing for them to actually show us, even as a faded flashback. I thought it would have been cool to see that. But it's kind of a nitpick, but yeah, it's something I would have preferred. And that's really my biggest gripe, is that thing. Of course, there are some cliches that we see in these types of movies, but sometimes the cliches are done well. And one of the cliches I actually hate that is done pretty well is crying. And usually in movies you'll see characters do like the one tear, they call it the sexy cry, which I hate because it's not sexy and it looks ridiculous. But in this movie there are a couple of scenes where people are crying and it really feels like emotions, because both their eyes are crying, and there's even snot coming out of their nose, because there's a sadness that you see that's not Hollywood, if that makes any sense. But as far as another positive, I gotta say, going back to the positives, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is not an action sequence. It's a very calm, very quiet scene, and that's where they really built the characters, especially Wolverine and Xavier, and their relationship, and the relationship with X-23 in this movie. It kind of helps that scene where it's very calm, very quiet, peaceful, and you kind of get to see them outside of being hunted in all of these movies. You get to see them just be normal in a sense. And I like that. It's one of my favorite scenes. Not to mention it's a good break in between the excitement and the insanity of the action sequences. Which in this movie, man, they earn that R rating. Yeah, you would think that, like it was Deadpool, it made sense for them to just go all out, just have a bunch of people getting their heads cut off and the decapitated head getting kicked into somebody, or a lot of swearing and things like that. But at the same time, you gotta realize Wolverine makes sense for that too. He's a very violent character, and they don't skip out on that violence. X-23 and Wolverine, oh god, their body count is kind of high in this movie, and the way that they're cut up and they're killed, man, it's pretty brutal, but it makes sense. You feel it in this movie. And there are some really good scenes of violence in this one, but it can be seen as over the top. It's kind of a negative on that. You could be seen as over the top for some people. It's a mixed bag, what kind of gore you like and how much gore you can handle before you go, okay, that's excessive. But for me, even though it could seem excessive, at least it made sense of these characters, and it didn't distract from the story itself. And I'm glad for that. There's a really good story in this movie, as I said, and it's probably the best X-Men movie that we've had. I've seen all of them except for the Wolverine, and I believe I saw X3 like once, but of all of them before, X-Men Days of Future Past was my favorite, but this one I think it surpasses it. And one great thing about it are the stakes are very different than the other X-Men movies. That's all I'm going to say about it. They are very different. And so if you're expecting the X-Men type of movie where those big action sequences and a lot of mutants fighting, you might be disappointed. You might not. But the action sequences are good, and the story is great, and the end goal is very different from what you see in a lot of action movies. So that's all I've got. What do you think? Have you watched Logan? Did you like it? And what do you think of this being? They've said it before. Hugh Jackman has come out a bunch of times and said this is the last time he's going to portray Wolverine. Which of these movies has your favorite portrayal of Wolverine in it? which of the 9 times Hugh Jackman has portrayed Wolverine is your favorite? That's how I should put it, yeah. So, don't know when I'm going to be able to see another movie or be able to review it. And so I'll probably do some top 10s soon. Been looking forward to some of these top 10s. I've been wanting to do it for a while now. So, until then, take care. Bye.